Today's episode has me sitting down with Gary Huang. Gary is the founder of Seven Figure Seller Summit, an online summit that's focused on helping educate people to really take their e-commerce business to the next level, whether it's 6, 7, 8 figures and beyond. I guarantee you there's something in it for everyone. And we spent a fair bit of time, talking about his background. He has a super interesting background that's actually having him source directly out of China. So he grew up in LA, but spent over 10 years sourcing directly and living in China. He speaks Mandarin fluently and is second generation American. But we talk a lot about the course, or rather the summit, and we share information as to like how it's structured. I started Successful Scales to help educate people on how to grow their businesses. So I figured this was a great opportunity for people to learn more about this and hopefully attend. It's free, or you can pay for it and have it in perpetuity. But the reality is I didn't want to pass up the opportunity to share some information with you guys. So here's the episode. Welcome to Successful Scales, the show where I talk to world-class professionals on what it takes to scale successful businesses. I dive deep asking questions to people who are running unicorn businesses, to raising funds, to buying businesses, mergers and acquisitions, IP and patent law, what is to manage performance management. I mean, the list goes on. The idea really is, how do I create knowledge and learning for you guys listening in? And of course, myself, getting the floor with people who I, in many cases, would never dream to share a room with. Before we jump into the episode, I've got to give a special thank you to our sponsors. Firstly, over at Global Wide Advisors, a leading digital consumer products investment bank focused on optimizing the sales process. An incredible team, always happy to pick up the phone and educate you or anyone about the sales process and what you should really consider, and can obviously help take you to market or even acquire businesses. I ring them for just about everything these days. Us over at Multiply Me, we are the end-to-end executive search and HR function into the Philippines, helping find better talent and onboarding them effectively. And last but not least, Scala, our management consultancy focused on process improvement, where we help build better systems for your business. That's all the ads you're going to get from me, ladies and gentlemen. The rest is all about learning. I hope you really enjoy and get as much out of these sessions as I do, sitting face to face with some of the world-renowned leaders in their respective fields, asking them the tough questions that they're not often asked. Gary, thanks for taking the time out of your very, very busy schedule at the moment to sit down with me on an episode of Successful Scales.
Yoni, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm been blown away at the experience that has been behind the scenes of Seven Figure Seller Summit and all that good stuff that we're going to get into likely in not too distant a future here. But before we dive into any of that, so that I don't mess it up, I'd love you to tell those listening at home a little bit about you and sort of what brings you to this point in time.
Excellent. Well, Yoni, first off, thanks for having me on. And also thank you for speaking at the Seven Figure Seller Summit. You're giving an awesome talk about scaling your business using people, processes, and technology I think it's very useful for a lot of more advanced Amazon and e-commerce sellers. So a quick intro about myself. I was born and raised in the States. I'm from LA originally, went to school there. And I guess the first chapter of my life where I got started in e-commerce was 2005. That's when I started selling on eBay. So back then, eBay was the 800-pound gorilla. It was the biggest marketplace like Amazon of today. I got started selling women's shoes. And I found a local importer in Los Angeles, and I just placed an order for a couple cases of women's shoes. These were Mary Jane's. They were like in leopard print, camo, polka dot. So it wasn't glamorous at all, but that's how I got my feet wet, selling on eBay. So that was the first chapter of my e-commerce journey. Second chapter, global financial crisis hit 2008. Saw the writing on the wall. Sales were starting to take a dip. And at the same time, I really wanted to make a move to Asia. I had this passion for China. My family is originally from China. I'm second generation Chinese American. And Shanghai was just the place to be. It was like electric. It was like New York City on steroids. Everyone's moving so fast, a lot of cool nightlife. So I ended up, long story short, booking a flight, crashing on my friend's couch for like the first month. And I found a job in sourcing with this consulting firm. So over time, I became, I don't know if I should be calling myself an expert, but I visited over 100 Chinese factories all over the country, seen different, like the good, the bad, the ugly sides of that, helping a lot of foreign clients find good suppliers, negotiations, quality control, shipping, all the dirty tricks, probably have been pulled on me. So, learning the hard way. So that's the second chapter of my life. And then the third chapter, got married in 2016, at the same time kind of hit a glass ceiling with my 9-to-5 job. So I decided to pivot back into e-commerce because I was listening to podcasts, hearing about Amazon FBA. I'm like, hey, I was doing e-com before, I can easily do that again. Obviously, it's a little different, but the beauty of that is with FBA is you can outsource all of the pick and pack, all of the shipping fulfillment. So I could run the business from Asia. So, and obviously with my sourcing background, I put 2 and 2 together. So that's when I got started with Amazon FBA. And then as a seller, I always wanted to learn from others. That's why I would attend a lot of these conferences. I would fly to Hong Kong to Global Sources Summit. They actually invited me to speak a couple of times about China sourcing best practices, which I was very honored about. And then 2018, my wife and I got pregnant with our son. She was expecting in the fall. I couldn't fly out to these events anymore. So, but I didn't want to be left behind because I was kind of isolated. I didn't know any other sellers around me at that time. So I thought, why not create this online event to ask these 7-figure sellers to teach me online and to teach everyone else online. So that was the genesis behind 7-Figure Seller Summit. We created it in 2018, and fast forward to today, this will be the 5th time we're running it. And we're getting over 3,000 people registering to watch from all over the world. We were voted favorite Amazon conference last year in 2020 by Seller Poll. This was entirely voted by the community. So I'm just super grateful that our community is finding value from our event. And I try to, I've spent like hundreds of hours curating the right topics, the right speakers to really solve the right problems. So I think that, that's why that's the whole, sorry for the long-winded story, but that's how we got to where we are today in a nutshell.
No, do not apologize. Firstly, that wasn't long-winded at all. And Jesus, there is some interesting things and just a very cool story to hear how you've ended up. And but right now you're in Asia, you're in Japan, right?
Yes. There's another chapter after that. I'm currently in Japan. We've been here. It's a COVID story. So I don't know if we want to get too much into that, but, I am in Okinawa, Japan with my wife and our son, who's 2.5. So, so the beauty of e-commerce, obviously, is you can run it so long as you have a good internet connection. So I'm just thankful for that we're able to run this. And I do have a small team as well. We're distributed all over the world, in the Philippines, in Vietnam, in Serbia, and me here in Japan. So it's a global summit that we're running.
Well, I mean, that just shows the stage in, the world that we're at and how fluid, it has. I mean, obviously, granted, COVID has disrupted our ability to move freely and get through. But yeah, I mean, it's a true testament to being able to actually handle anything e-commerce related and building a summit, to 3,000 people, often never having met anyone in person. It's a pretty crazy phenomenon, and it's something that I think is just going to remain to be true.
Let me just preface that a little more. I've actually met several of the speakers in person before I did the summit. So, I met back in the early days, I met Greg Mercer from Jungle Scout. I've met, some of the other speakers like Chad Rubin and, Chris Davey. And so I have met some of them in person, but
for sure.
You, we've never connected, but
not yet. Not yet.
Once we get back to traveling again, then I'm looking forward to that.
So am I. And I want to dive into some of your background because I think that you came into e-commerce at, very early stage adopter. You said 2005, you're on eBay and you're selling women's shoes of all things. How did that come to be, firstly? How did you get, and also I was on mute before, but
Yeah.
You said like, that's when I got my feet wet, and you're using women's shoes.
Yeah.
It was just.
Yeah. Okay. It's kind of a weird story. It's not like I have this shoe fetish or anything. It's, so actually there's like a little part, like a preface to that. 2004, I found a contract job with Google in their online AdWords department in 2004. So this was pre-IPO. And then I was working in their AdWords department, and then I was reviewing AdWords ads, like those 3-line ads. And it was like purely editorial, checking for like, content and just like any like red flags, etc. So I started noticing a trend, like people were advertising for, online poker, back when it was still like acceptable, these like Tahitian nani juice, like all these weird like health supplements and like like sex toys and all that stuff. I'm like, maybe there's something here. Like these guys are spending a ton of money. They must be making some money, right? I mean, they must be doing something right.
Smart.
So long story, yeah, so long story short, I didn't get the gig at Google. Otherwise, I would be a millionaire by now. I probably would never have started that eBay business. But the silver lining was I took that experience and then I started searching for opportunities online. Why decide on women's shoes? So I moved back down from Mountain View to LA. I went back home with my tail between my legs, and my mom is retired fashion designer, women's fashion. And I think you were living in LA before. So there's like the whole fashion district downtown LA.
Yep.
So literally, when I grew up, I was like surrounded by like, women's fashion, and, she would like go to the California Mart. And when I was little, I was like, I've never told anyone this before, but I was over the summers, like she would bring me into her like workshop, and I was like gluing little flowers on the women's.
That's awesome.
And stuff. So it was through my mom's connection with some like Chinese importers that she knew, like in the fashion industry. It was like a friend of a friend. And then that's how I stumbled upon it. Like, she's like, oh, like Tony has that, he's importing a lot of shoes. Why don't you see if you can sell that online? I'm like, okay, let's give it a shot. Right. And actually, there's another part to this story. I almost forgot. At that time, there was like a local marketplace on the weekend. In the community. This was in Chinatown. So LA Chinatown. Yeah. Sometimes on the Sundays they have like, like almost like a swap meet. So like for vendors in Chinatown, it was free to just like set up a table, just put down your stuff. And I'm like, hey, why not? It's a test, right? So I put down the shoes, and lo and behold, people started buying the shoes, and like these ladies and the girls, and I'm like, hey, there's something here, right? So then I started learning about eBay and listing those items online, and I was like picking and packing. And at that time there was no FBA. I was doing this all myself. I was a beast on the tape gun. I had my like thermal like Zebra printer. Like the UPS guy knew me on a first name basis, and I was driving to the post office as well. Priority mail. I thought I was the man. I had my business.
Yeah. Well, mate, I mean, that's the starting. That's the start. At the end of the day, when you're going through the process of trying to figure out what makes sense, you were the man there. I mean, you're still the man now, but I'm saying like going through that process, like it's all about, trialing, seeing how, like, it's funny when you were breaking down just now, like selling at the swap meet and then moving to online. It's almost like, testing, it's like a test landing page. And then it's like, okay, this actually has momentum. Let's start putting some media behind it,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, the old school way of doing it, and then I would go to like the eBay events. I would drive or fly to Vegas. There was eBay Live, kind of like, with all the Prosper Show events that they have now. eBay was the big thing back then. So, there would be like these big sellers. I was a power seller. I was excited. I had my little badge and, my little, getting the tokens and stuff and learning from others. And I was reading up on books at that time. And that's how I got started.
Yeah, I mean, fascinating. And you really, I mean, you took that whole sourcing equation, we're talking about turning it on steroids. You moved to China, and then would you say over 100 factories you looked at? I mean, dude, what? I've been sitting here the entire time just thinking like, okay, What was that like? What was that like actually physically inspecting all these factories? And
Yeah.
my biggest question I want to say is what are some of the most ridiculous things that happened to you? But tell me, I mean, you land this job, you are effectively now going and sourcing product direct from factories in China. I mean, what does that experience look like?
I my former boss, like I owe a lot to him. Um, Bob, he was like he's like a former like Johnson and Johnson managing director in Shanghai. So he's like an old China hand, and but he was like a super salesman, like a hustler. He wasn't like, maybe he wasn't like, I don't know, like street smart and like, business smart. He was like the smartest guy in the room, So I learned so much from him. And then like how to negotiate with these factories, what to say, how to frame the story to get them interested in doing business. It's not like we just sit down and we talk numbers. There's like, you got to warm up the relationship. So I owe a lot to him. Just learning the ropes, because I literally, I did have one advantage, Yoni, the fact that I do speak Mandarin Chinese fluently. Growing up with my family in LA, my family's from Beijing, so we spoke Mandarin. We were like the weird kids. Like I was the weird kid because everybody else at that time in the 80s spoke Cantonese. We spoke Mandarin. So, but now I'm like super grateful for that. But anyways, that's a totally different story. Um, so you were asking me like, what was the craziest thing, or like,
Well,
that
before
happened?
like what, so like, I mean, from a personal level here, like, I have obviously dealt with China before, but not at
Yeah,
scale, right? I've never
yeah,
been to look at a factory. I know it's very hard to have a strong relationship that doesn't involve some pretty solid drinking. You know,
yeah.
so
Yes and no. Yeah, yeah,
so I
yes,
mean, I'm just
yeah,
curious, like, and I'm sure a lot of people listening in too.
yeah,
It's rare that you get to chat with someone who's really had that level of experience, being on the ground for an extended period of time, doing deals and understanding what that's like. I mean, like how everyone's looking on Alibaba and and a host of websites that exist. I mean, I imagine that sourcing inside of China would be altogether different, like the relationships, the networks, how
yeah.
you find the right factories. Obviously you can get a sourcing agent, but like, what was that relationship like, or how did that work?
Yeah. Your connection was breaking up a little bit. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Okay. So how do we do that? So, I started a lot earlier than most e-com sellers started sourcing. We use many different methods. We did use online as well. We used Alibaba. We used certain websites, but also we use our own contacts. We use our own network. So, like my former boss, like he was well connected, like in his hometown, like Wuxi, and Wuxi was famous for like some of their like solar panels and photovoltaic. So it was through these relationships. It was also through various trade shows. Because in China, I mean, I never go to Canton Fair. It's just too unfocused. So if I'm looking for like a solar product, I would go to the solar trade show. So everything is really deep in solar. If I'm looking for like a kitchen product, I would go to like the baking trade show. And these trade shows, they happen like all year round in China, in Shanghai, in southern China. There's like a big convention center, and all these suppliers, they would just fly here from all over the world. I mean, all over China, right? So you really have a lot of reach. And the other advantage is, once we find a factory, we can just, if we're serious, we just board the high speed rail. From Shanghai to, like Zhejiang, it's like an hour and a half train ride, and then I can be back in time for dinner. So I can visit multiple factories in one day, and once I see the factory, you really get a feel of whether they're doing this or they're trying to like pull something over your eyes. But yeah, it's um
Were
yeah
you were
it's
you were you treated as an outsider, or were you open with brought in with open arms? Obviously growing up in LA, obviously speaking Mandarin fluently, but what was the perception there?
it's that's a really good question. Both. So it's funny because from the sourcing perspective, from like a lot of factories, or even if I go to a trade show, it's like if you have like a Chinese looking face, I'm not going to be politically correct, but it's almost like they're racist against their own people because they think
Really?
we're a competitor. Yeah, they think, oh, this guy's like from another factory. What's he doing here? Maybe he's trying to like steal my design, right? So actually, if you have like a non-Chinese or Asian face, they may be more receptive to initially. I mean, just before you start talking. All right, it's just the way how China works. It's kind of funny. But the fact that I speak Chinese fluently, that they don't see me as like, I'm always like an outsider wherever I go. So even in my hometown, it's we won't get into that. But in China, like when I speak Chinese, it's like my accent may be a little off. So if I'm in the South, they think, oh, he's a Northerner, right? If I'm in the North, they think, oh, he's a Southerner. It's like he's always from somewhere else. But once we start talking, they realize that I'm serious about doing business, and we ask intelligent questions about the product. And once we get into that, then business will the relationship will start developing. But yeah, that's how things work.
Yeah, no, I mean, fascinating to have that perpetual, feeling of somewhat of an outsider there. It's a crazy thing. I mean, I feel like I live here in Tel Aviv now, and I spent time in LA for 3 years. But you know what? Everyone loves the Australian accent, so I feel like I just get this free ride of like, so
Aussies,
we seem to get away with a little bit more. But wow, that is, and also, I mean, you haven't even mentioned 80/20 sourcing at all. But clearly you're still in the game now, right? I mean, what does that look like for you today?
Right. So I started 80/20 sourcing, which is an online site that teaches e-commerce and Amazon sellers how to source. So we have a lot of content, a lot of free content on the blog. Sourcing best practices, how to do like negotiations, what not to do. But the thing is, I'm not taking on sourcing clients anymore. That was, when I first started pivoting away from my previous job. So I saw the demand, because at that time, about 2016, there wasn't as much content online as there is today about sourcing. But yeah, it is. I still feel like it's a very useful resource for people that want to learn more about sourcing, but I'm not taking on sourcing clients at this time.
So, okay. So, I mean, you highlighted something there that I am actually particularly interested in understanding from a decision-making perspective. So, everyone that I speak to, everyone's driving forward. They're building businesses. They're trying to do things at scale. They're trying to exit. They're trying to have sort of like, some more calculated and direct in what they want to achieve. And others are sort of, I would say I'd even classify myself. I see gaps in the market. I see opportunity to build solutions. And that's historically how I've been sort of focused. I'm starting to think more strategically today than probably ever before, through some of the things that I've done. Now, you've clearly made an intentional decision here not to take on any more sourcing clients. You've got a whole team around Seven Figure Seller Summit, and you also are doing 80/20 sourcing from a content and course focused perspective.
Right.
What specifically has sort of resulted in that creation, or the decision to pivot and to focus, from what I'm understanding, entirely into the online course summit space?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Yoni. So over time, I've realized that sourcing, it's kind of like a race to the bottom. People want the best price at the best quality. And a lot of times it's like you're helping someone find a product, but it's like you're going down that rabbit hole. You're getting dirty, or visiting the factories. At the end of the tunnel, there's nothing there. There's something wrong with it. The management, they changed their mind. They're not going to go for it. We're sorry. Thanks for your help, though. I'll just say, I've been doing this over a decade. right? So it's just in terms of the time versus the ROI, it wasn't really, I think, ideal. Um, it may be for some people, maybe if they have the proper like support team around them to delegate. But at that time, I was just doing this myself, and I just made a decision that by teaching people, it's like rather than me feeding them the fish, I'm teaching them to fish. That's why I decided to shift the model. So I can teach more people than I can feed directly, right? Because my time is limited. So that's why I shifted to the teaching, the coaching model, and then before I went into Seven Figure Seller Summit into that business.
I mean, that's a calculated decision right there. You're understanding that, the one-to-one relationship and, 80-20 sourcing. Yeah, we talked a little bit about the Pareto principle. So both of us are very much about efficiencies and scale here. And yeah, time is something inherently that is not scalable, not at least as an individual. So that's how you can really turn it on its head. Yeah, I mean, I had all these other questions like, well, what if you changed your relationship? What if you said, right, I'm only going to take on 5 clients, but I want to take a percentage of equity in perpetuity, and I'll source these products directly. I mean, then I think that sometimes it's the model that breaks down and the relationship. So it can be very transactional. And I experience this. I'm in two service businesses, right? So, the old saying goes from agency land, you're only as good as your last delivery, the last creative project you put together, the last website, the last ad campaign, whatever it was. It's, people forget very quickly. And so when it's a race to the bottom like that, it doesn't make sense. But finding the right partners, might be an interesting thing, but you've made a very calculated decision. So I want to jump into Seven Figure Seller Summit because we were talking about it before we jumped in, and Seven Figure Seller Summit starts on the 16th of August, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, August 16th through the 20th.
So August 16th through the 20th, and it's free, or you can pay and get a whole lot of added bonus. You know what? Please, you tell people better than I will.
Definitely. Well, so Seven Figure Seller Summit, it's really designed to help intermediate to advanced level e-commerce and Amazon sellers really build, scale, and prepare to exit their businesses. So every day is a different theme. It's a 5-day event. So it's kind of like the natural progression of you growing your e-commerce business. So day one is all about the mindset, the fundamentals, getting all the foundations right. And this year, especially with logistics, we're going through this, what I call perfect storm of all of the logistics challenges, the high shipping rates, the increased raw material costs on the factories, delays caused by COVID, and as well as Amazon inventory restrictions. So how are these 7 and 8 figure sellers navigating through this perfect storm so they can still come out and win in the fourth quarter when it's winning time, right? So that's the key theme. All right. So day one is all about the fundamentals and mindset. Day two is all about marketing, branding, PPC. We brought in real sellers and also experts as well. People like Brian Johnson. He's like one of the most respected people in PPC, but he's talking about listing optimization. How to stand out from the competition and win against them. So you'll learn a lot in terms of that, and also the 80-20 of PPC. There's like 40 different Amazon ad types right now, right? Which ones are working? Which ones should you be doubling down on? Which ones may not be as cost effective? How to budget given like how much ad spend you have. I think that would be very valuable for a lot of sellers. And then day three is all about scaling your business. Your session is there as well. Maybe if you want to take a second to talk about what you'll be sharing as well for our audience.
For sure. I'll just say as well, like, at the start of this, you said the word curated in terms of the experience on how it's done. And when we were going through this whole process of like, well, what's the topics? And we actually sat down. I mean, the amount of time that you invested in making sure that this was speaking to the audience, that it was the right presentation, that it was the right fit, that it was actually going to add value. I mean, really, really impressive. It just shows the level of attention to detail that you have, and obviously how curated you want this experience to be, so that it adds tremendous value. So, I mean, the session that I talked about is very much about what it takes to scale an e-commerce operation. So I'm talking about people, process, and technology, which are the three things that we define inside of a Scala that create a perfect system. And so the whole session is really understanding like how to frame your business, how to not be that solopreneur who's stuck, in the weeds, delivering and working inside of their business. How do you start working on your business and start to build processes and start to actually look at your finances? And there's even a free financial 2-year Amazon FBA planner that's in there, and a whole lot of great stuff too. And if you pay to be the all access pass, then there's even discounts working with a Scala. And I think I would assume every other speaker, and there's, I think, over 25 speakers that you've had and curated.
We have over 30 now. Like we're adding additional speakers at the last minute to just fill in any gaps. Like we added another speaker like just today, Chelsea Cohen from SoStock. She's one of the masters of inventory management, because that's like the number one sin of any seller going out of stock, and especially now with the Amazon restrictions and all the 3PL difficulty. I mean, she gave like a master class on that. I think that would be super valuable. But yeah, you're right. I mean, going back to your initial question, we do have a free pass. So if anybody wants to join, they can just go to sevenfiguresellersummit.com or just Google it, and then you can get your free pass, and you can watch each day's session for 24 hours for free. And then, so that's the most cost-effective option. You're welcome to join that way. For people that want to upgrade and unlock all the sessions and watch them anytime they want, we have the All Access Pass. So with that, you'll have all the videos, all of the audios, all of the transcripts for people that are more visual learners. In addition to bonuses, some of the speakers are offering even like a private one-on-one consultation. I think if you're able to sit down with a 7-figure seller, like almost like having coffee with them, imagine what you can learn and what you can do to grow your business from someone that's actually doing it. I'm just amazed that these people are giving up their personal time. I think even one of those calls could be even more valuable than the whole cost of the ticket. I mean, which isn't that much in the first place. So yeah, for people that want to invest more, we have that as well. And then something new that we're doing this year is we're offering a VIP mastermind for 7- and 8-figure sellers. So these are sellers with over $1 million annual revenue. So we're offering a live Zoom mastermind. It will be a small group format, so it will be 4 additional masterminds in addition to the summit. So this would be kind of like almost like sitting down over the lunch table, hot seat format, different sellers sharing about what's working, what's not working, getting feedback. So maybe just one takeaway, learning from another very successful seller that could add like, tens of thousands of dollars to your revenue. So I'm really excited about that. That's something new that we're doing. So we're really trying to help, different sellers at different stages. I've spent, like what you said, like probably like over 400 hours just really listening to people, like talking to sellers, curating the content, looking for the right speakers. Like I'm surveying the audience. We had over 200 responses, what the top challenges are. So that's how I know people with the high shipping fees. That's a big one in product selection. And so that's how we were able to find the right speakers. We have over 30 speakers, 7-figure sellers, 8-figure sellers, e-commerce experts such as yourself. And that's how we developed the program. And at the end of every day, we have a live recap roundtable, a panel as well. So we invite back all of the sellers from the day and our live audience. So you guys can ask them any questions, like an AMA. Right. So I think there's a ton of value there. And if you get your free pass, you're welcome to join in on that as well. So I really think that it's a golden opportunity for a lot of sellers out there to really, learn from what people are doing right now, because e-commerce is changing so quickly.
I mean, amazing. In a word, I love how really curated and well thought out the entire structure is. And, as someone who's participated in a number of masterminds and is able to connect with a lot of high level service providers and sellers. And, I get, fortunately, we work with a lot of the aggregators too. So looking at it at that scale as well, I mean, being able to see, I've got I've got one of the co-founders of Thrash, John, coming on next week to sit and record a session with me. And I mean,
Awesome.
it's so cool to be able to talk about, well, what's it like growing to 1,500 people in the space of 3 years? What does that
Yeah.
take in terms of scaling a business?
Yeah.
And I think that the solution that is Seven Figure Seller Summit is a very well-oiled, curated experience as to all the different key pain points and how you solve them over the course of 5 days. And then the mastermind gives you access to people who also, like, some of the most valuable lessons that I would say I learn is on this podcast, being able to speak to people and have these candid conversations about things that, don't necessarily go well. We were talking about, I said to you before we push record, like, from someone who's recorded a video for the Seven Figure Seller Summit and gone through the process, and when you sent out the promotional collateral and how sort of one-to-one personal everything feels, like, it feels extremely well oiled from my standpoint. And you were giving me the insight that it might perceivably feel that way, but there's a lot of work that goes into actually making it feel that well oiled. Yeah.
Yes. We've learned over the years, right? It's not our first merry-go-round. This is the 5th time we're doing it. We really, it's like, we really try to value our relationships, because, and I mean, all of these speakers, they're taking personal time out of their schedules, right? They're running real businesses. So the least we can do is just, show them the gratitude and the respect for them adding value, to us. So we try to really help them however we can. If they like to promote, we create custom social image shares. We really try to do that. But it's not easy. I could talk more. I can talk about the struggles as well. It's not like a highlight reel. I mean, this is what you're seeing is kind of like Sports Center, but you don't see like the reps I'm doing. And like when I sprain my ankle and, I have tendonitis in my wrist from being on the computer all day long and, time away from my family and stuff like that. But, I'm really passionate because this is my mission. I feel like this is my calling. That's why I'm doing this. All the pieces add up and I'm able to reach out to all these people. And, I feel like my goal is to really help e-commerce sellers, entrepreneurs, obtain the financial independence. I know some people in the audience, they work in the medical field. They're on the front lines. I really salute them for what they do, but, they have families as well. So, it's like something like this could be like the ticket, to get away from that. So, and then we also, we have a good like charity that we support as well, in Cambodia with like an orphanage that I visited before. We taught, my wife and I, we taught them some English as well. Super bright kids, but it's just some people are not as fortunate. So that's kind of like
that's awesome.
Behind what we're doing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's when you can transition your passion into having impact and being able to effectively educate the masses of existing and future potential sellers. You can really unlock a whole lot. And you've been doing this for 5 years now when it comes to Seven Figure Seller Summit, but I would be shocked if
I've been doing it for over 3 years. We have 5 summits, and the reason is because e-com is changing so fast. Like it's like e-com years are like dog years. 1 year is like 7 years because it just that's
100%. So five summits, 3 years. Either way, there's a lot of people when you're hitting numbers like 3,000 attendees in year 3, that's very solid growth. So it's obviously showing that year on year, people are interested. It's adding value to their lives, and the fact that that's a driving mission for you. And I would say the same. Like, I'm super passionate about creating financial security and opportunities for people that otherwise might not have had them. Like, the whole Multiply Me business exists so that we can pay fair salaries, healthcare, social security, HMO, PhilHealth, 13th month, Pagibig. Like, we do a lot of things that are very atypical in the space. And it's because at the end of the day, it's a real human. This whole VA sort of culture for me frustrates me because, like, even if it's someone that's a low-level virtual assistant that's doing baseline tasks, at the end of the day, that's literally someone's life that you're impacting. It's not this like transactional, okay, cool. Like, they're just someone that sits on the other side of the computer screen or just chats me on Skype or whatever it is. Like, this person is delivering solutions, trying to hopefully improve and get better so that they can, push their career and their opportunities forward. So yeah, I'm like you, very passionate about creating opportunities for others and for, the education piece. Like I'm happy to jump on Seven Figure Seller Summit. I was even happy. I even put a different presentation together on hiring because I understand obviously the importance of it, but it's all about how do you serve, how do you add value first, and when you can connect those two things together, it becomes a really powerful tool in supporting. I'm starting to sound a little bit like woo-woo here, but actually supporting, a bigger mission and something that's a little bit larger than just you and me sitting here and, fattening our pockets, for example. I think that, when you can move into that sort of zone, I think fundamentally there's a big shift from a reward perspective too. Like I feel really good about what I do every day, and you could pay me all the money in the world to do some shady shit, and I'd most likely, I mean, who knows how much money we're talking here right now, but most likely I'm going to turn it down because I believe in the process and I believe in the passion behind what's driving my true calling too. So that resonates. Well, mate, I know that we're getting close to the end of this, and I just, like I said to you as well, I'm going to rush this one. So we've got like 20 eps in the can, but I think that if the idea around successful scales is about helping people to grow businesses, then for this not to feature as soon as possible and for people to understand the intrinsic value that a week-long course is going to have, then I'm not doing my job. So that's why I wanted to get you on, and I wanted to have a little bit of a different approach and talk more so heavily about Seven Figure Seller Summit, because I think you got up to the day of scalability, and I'd love to hear, is day 5 all about exit?
Yeah. So after day 3, scalability, before we get to exits, a very, very important piece of the puzzle, and that's profitability. That's day 4. Profitability to keep more money in your pocket. So you'll learn ways from real sellers how to overcome these high shipping rates, how to find 3PLs, warehouses at lower costs. One of the sellers has a really innovative model. He actually uses 3PLs in China. And I don't know many sellers that are doing that. He uses LTLs. And then you also learn ways to cut costs, sourcing from China, and also cash flow funding as well. There's ways that you can get more cash for your business. So it's like your lifeblood of your business, right? And then after that, day 5 will be all about exits, structuring your business to sell it. Talking about Thrasio, they are our platinum sponsor, so we're super grateful for them. So they're also speaking at the summit. And just a quick aside, the Thrasio team, this is the second time they're sponsoring the summit, and they were very happy with the content and also with the partnership. And actually, I heard that with some of their new hires, they actually asked them to watch the summit from start to end to really learn about the whole process of e-commerce from real sellers, and they find value from that. So I think that says something as well.
That's a huge feather in your cap if that's their onboarding process to joining Thrasio.
I don't know if it's on board for everyone, but I did hear that they are asking some of their new hires to watch. So
pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm very humbled by that. And so day 5, we have some real sellers that have exited their business. And Josh Dietrich, he had like an amazing 8-figure exit. He had an Amazon business and a Shopify store. So I think that's a super valuable story that people can learn from. You'll also learn about how to increase your valuation, how to maximize your exits. Defense wins championships. Like the costliest mistakes that sellers can make when they exit. I think that will be super valuable. And also, we have someone talking about post-exit strategy as well. What you should do next, right? If you want to get back in the game, and what you shouldn't do, be careful with those non-competes, and also like what are some of the hottest categories that aggregators are looking at right now, so you can kind of know if your business is hot or not. So that kind of rounds out the event. So kind of like the whole holistic process of building, scaling, and exiting your business.
Brilliant. I mean, that really does take you on a round the world journey from, how to tactically buy media and handle everything from listing optimizations all the way through to profitability, which in my session, I talk a little bit about that too. And, at the end of the day, when when you're looking to sell your business, if you're not at least doing 10% in gross margin, then no one's talking to you. So like having a whole day focused on profitability is going to change, a lot of people's lives effectively. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to watch and learn from a lot of the names that I know and love, and know that these are some super switched on, capable, and engaging people who have done some really impressive things in their careers. So super stoked. I would say, Gary, now's the time where I let you tell everyone where they can find you and what's next. But I'll tell you guys, Seven Figure Seller Summit, it's coming out. This should hopefully launch this week, this episode, so next week, and there'll be links in every one of the arenas that we post this, from Spotify all the way through to our website and YouTube, etc. But I'd love you to have last words, mate. So anything else that I'm missing here that we can add value to everyone.
Yeah, we covered a lot today, and that was a great summary. I would say that with everyone's business, whether you're a 7-figure seller or you're an intermediate seller, or even if you're just starting, I think that one of the best things you can do is really surround yourself with like-minded entrepreneurs. And I know, even though we're getting out of this whole pandemic, a lot of people still can't travel, myself included. So I think with our summit, it's a great chance for you guys to, number one, see what a lot of successful sellers are doing right now in their business, so you can learn how to do that. Number two, how to avoid some of the most common mistakes. I always try to ask that question. A smart person learns from their mistakes. A wise person learns from the mistakes of others. So I'm trying to get them to spill the beans, so for learning for you guys. And number three is, we have our live daily Q&As. So even if you get the free pass, you're still welcome to join us and to ask these sellers, these experts, your questions. I think, back when 2018, we never had, this. So I'm kind of I built it for you guys, and I built it for myself, but also for you guys, right? So I really would love to invite everybody listening to Seven Figure Seller Summit next week, and hopefully we'll see you there.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'll be staying up for that Q&A and answering any questions that hopefully I can. So yeah. Awesome. Well, Gary, mate, thanks so much. I know how busy your schedule's been, especially in the lead up to this launch. So I really appreciate your time, and thanks for sharing, mate.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Yoni. And thank you so much for having me. And I hope everyone stays safe and has a great fourth quarter coming up, and hope to see you at the summit.
Amen.